Well, hello there, my awesome class. Yes, I am not here today. I am taking my daughter to college. But I will be back tomorrow. Everyone, don't worry, I'll be back tomorrow. But today will run like a normal day. There's going to be plenty for you to do, so make sure that you stay on task. And we are going to start the daily. And you can work in groups. Go ahead and work in groups, but you need to make sure that you are being respectful and you are doing it quietly. And the sub will take notes on if you are out of control. So please make sure that you work together and work efficiently. So starting now, you will have 5 minutes to do the daily. And when that 5 minutes is up, I will let you know and you can turn it in and then I will give you the answer. So go ahead in 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, you have about 30 seconds left. So if you would like to put them in the tray and get your points, you need to do that right now. Okay, so this question says that a swimming pool, so you have the pool, and its dimensions are 20 yards by 15 yards. And the walk around, that means the part that's on the outside, is 3 yards wide. So if you think about it, that's 3 yards on the top, 3 yards on the bottom, 3 yards on the left, and 3 yards on the right. And if you think about that and you add them together, that would mean that the one side would be 20, the other side would be 15, and that would be the larger side. And the greater side, you would add 3 on the left, 3 on the right, so that would make 26. And 3 on the top, 3 on the bottom, that would make 21. So then it would be 26 times 21. So therefore, the larger area of the rectangle is 546 square yards, and the area of the smaller rectangle is 300 yards. And if you subtract them, you get 246. So today's lesson is on exponent rules, negative and zero exponents. And we've been working on exponents and how they work in the positive, but now we're going to work on how they go when they're negative exponents. And this works a little bit differently than what you would think. It does not make them a negative number, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But to start off with, we're going to do some practice problems for what we've done in the last couple days. So in these practice problems are going to show the product properties. So when you have an exponent to an exponent. And I'm going to give you about 3 minutes to finish these problems 1 through 4, and then I will give you the answers. Okay, I'm going to go over the answers in 3, 2, 1. Okay, so if we're looking at these answers, x to the ninth to the fifth power. So when we have an exponent to exponent, we multiply the exponents. So we would multiply 9 times 5, and the answer would be x to the 45th. Same thing for number 2. We're going to multiply the exponents together. F to the 5th times F to the 4th would be F to the 20th. And then for the third one, 2 times 7 is T to the 14th. Now in number 4, we have to remember to multiply both variables by 2. So the answer would be x to the 8th, y to the 16th. Okay, so let's get started on our lesson today. And let's talk about their exponent rules. So negatives and zero exponents. And here's where we're going to kind of learn what a negative exponent actually means. So if we look at this first slide with patterns of exponents, and you should be guiding in your guided notes. And the pattern says, if you look at this, 2 cubed, as we know, equals 8, because 2 times 2 times 2 equals 8. And then 2 squared is 4. 2 to the first power is 2. And notice, 2 to the 0 power equals 1. Everything to the 0 power is going to be 1, and we're going to find that in a second. And then if you look at 2 to the negative 1, it's actually 1 over 2 to the first power, which would be 1/2. And then if you look at 2 to the negative square, it would be 1 over 2 squared, which is 1/4. And then if we go 2 to the negative 3, or negative cube, it would be equals 1 over 2 cubed, which is 1/8. So as you notice as you go down, and the products are divided by 2. That's interesting. Do you see the pattern? Okay, so dividing, as we know, is the opposite of multiplying. A negative exponent actually means how many times to divide the base number instead of multiplying, because if we have 2 squared, we would have 2 times 2, which is 4. But if we have 2 to the negative 2, it actually means the opposite. It means to divide, so it would be 1/4. Or in this example, 2 to the negative 1 would actually mean we divide it, so it would be 1/2. So basically, to make an exponent positive, you put a 1 over it, or make that the denominator, or put the 1 on the top as the numerator. So you move it, or as what I call, you flip it. So this says to make an exponent positive, put a 1 on the top, which is the numerator, and move the base and power to the bottom, the denominator, and you make the power positive. So you should have seen this in the patterns with the exponents. So when we look at this, when we ask to simplify, we never, ever, ever leave an exponent negative. We make it positive. So 2 to the negative 6 would be 1 over 2 to the 6th power. So the same thing, x to the negative 4 would be 1 over x to the 4th. Always try to keep your exponents positive as much as possible. Okay, so now we're going to work on the 0 power rule. So we just learned about negatives, but now we're going to learn about the 0 power rule. And the 0 power rule is any number, any single number that you can think of to the 0 power is going to equal the number 1. So I could have 10,000 to the 0 power, and the answer will still be 1. So no matter what, anything to the 0 power is the number 1, which makes it kind of interesting when you start doing lots and lots of these together, because anything to the 0 power, automatically just make it 1. It kind of cancels out anything. So any number except 0 to the 0 power equals 1, because 0 to the 0 power would be 0. So just think of this as anything. Anytime you see a 0 to the 0 power, it is going to be the number 1. Okay, so let's get some practice in here. I'm going to give you a couple minutes to do this. And we have number 1 is 3 to the negative square. Number 2 is x to the negative 5th power. 3 is 6 to the 0 power. And 4 is t to the 0 power. I'm going to give you about a minute to do these, and then I will give you the answer. Okay, you should be finishing up, and I'm going to give you the answers now. So 3 to the negative square, like I said before, you take the 1 and you put it over it, which would be 1 over 3 squared, which 3 squared is 9. So the answer should be 1/9. For 2, x to the negative 5th, well, the x to the 5th power is kind of a larger number. So if you didn't get that, that's totally okay. And you can leave it as 1 over x to the 5th power. And then we get to 3 and 4. And just like I said, anything to the 0 power is the number 1. So both your answers for 3 and 4 should be 1. Okay, so for one more little review and closing this up, y to the negative 9th, if you look at this, this should be a flip where you put 1 over y to the 9th. And then for 7 to the 0, we should have 7 to the 0. Anything to the 0 power should be the number 1. So let's take a look at our answers. And there you go, we're correct. Okay, so we have gone through a bunch of different exponent rules. And right now we are going to do a worksheet to just kind of reiterate that and something that you can hold on to for your notes for the test. So if we can take about a 2-minute break and we can pass those notes out, and I will come back after everything has been passed out. Okay, we're going to do a couple more practice problems on what we just learned. Kind of coming back, you've had a couple minute break. We're going to do x to the negative 9th, 6 to the negative 3, y to the 0, and negative 4 to the 0 power. So go ahead and do those. I'm going to give you about a minute to do that. Okay, here come the answers. You should have written down 1 over 8 to x to the 9th power, 1 over 6 cubed, and 1, and then 1 again. Okay, so hopefully you got those answers and you're understanding these negative exponents and when you have to the 0 power. We will go over it again tomorrow just in case. Okay, so we're going to do a foldable that can go into your notes in your notebook so that you have it. It'll help you later on so that you remember the product rule, the quotient rule, the power rule, and the negative and exponents and zero exponents rules. So go ahead and take out that sheet that you were just given, and you're going to write certain things on the inside of these. So you can flip over your page and make sure that you're putting the rule on the correct side. So you can cut these out later and you can glue them into your notebook later if you would like. Or you can just have it to flip over. You like the product rule and then you can flip it over and look at it. That is totally and completely up to you. So for the inside flat for the product rule, if you look at this, it says add the exponents. And we learned this on the first day of this. When you have two multiplied exponents with the same base. Remember, you have to have the same base. So if you look at this, x to the 7th times x to the 4th, the base is the same. It is both x. When you have them multiplied together, you would add the exponents. So x to the 7th plus 4. So x7 plus 4 is 11. So the answer would be x to the 11th. If you have 2 squared times 2 to the 8th power, we have the same base of 2. We can add the exponents, so it would be 2 plus 8, which would be 10, so the answer would be 2 to the 10th power. Make sure to write these in. This will be a good way to remember this. Remember, when you multiply two exponents with the same base, we add. So now on the opposite side, and the quotient rule, remember when we have dividing, so if we have two variables or bases with this, they have to be the same base. And we're dividing them, we subtract. So it's the opposite. So again, multiplication, division are opposites. We're going to do the same thing with our exponents. We're going to do the opposite operation. So if we have x to the 7th divided by x cubed, we would go x 7 minus 3, which would equal x to the 4th power. Then again, we have 3 to the 9th power divided by 3 cubed, which would be 3 to the 9 minus 3 power, which would be 3 to the 6th power. So remember, anytime we have these, multiplication is addition, division is subtraction, and I know we've gone over this already, but it's something that you just have to get into your mind consistently. Okay, and now the next part. The power rule, the inside flat, when we have an exponent to an exponent. Well, when we have an exponent to an exponent, we multiply them. So x to the 5th to the 3rd power, or cubed, would be 5 times 3. So x to the 5 times 3, which would be x to the 15th power, because 5 times 3 is 15. Then, if you look at the next one, 5 to the 6th power squared would be 5, and then to the 6 times 2 power, which obviously 6 times 2 is 12, so 5 to the 12th power. Okay, and the last flap is what we've learned today on the negative and zero exponent rules. Okay, so you're going to need to write this down. To make an exponent positive, put a 1 on top, the numerator, and move the base and power to the bottom, the denominator, and make the power positive. You saw this in the patterns with exponents. We already talked about this. And now here are the examples. 2 to the negative 4 equals 1 over 2 to the 4th power. X to the negative cube equals 1 over x cubed. Then we have the 0 power. Remember, anything to the 0 power is 1. Any number except 0 to the 0 power equals 1. Your examples are 4 to the 0 power equals 1, and t to the 0 also equals 1. And I'm going to give you a couple minutes to write all of this down. I know it might take you a second to write it all down and to get it onto this space. So I'm going to give you a minute to do that. Okay, friends, you have done an excellent job today of taking notes, but we're going to get a little bit more difficult with this. And I'm going to give you some more difficult problems. And there's going to be 4 problems, and I'm going to give you 5 minutes to work at your tables with your group to make sure you have the right answer. And then I will give you the answers later on. So you may work in your groups to do these problems, and I'm going to give you 5 minutes to work together to complete the problems. And then I will give you the answers and tell you how I got the answers to make sure that you guys understand completely everything about these exponent rules. So go ahead and work in your groups. We're going to give you 5 minutes to work together to have the answers. And hopefully everyone will have all 4 answers correct. Good luck. Okay, all right. You only have a couple seconds left. And I'm going to put the answers up in 3, 2, 1. All right. Oops. I don't know. We don't have brackets on the simplify. I'm sorry. They're supposed to have brackets there. So it should be, you should have done x to the 6th times x to the 7th power, which when we multiply exponents, we add them together. So that would be x to the 13th power. And then, as we saw in the other thing, we were supposed to have brackets around x to the 3rd and x squared, and those would be multiplied together, which means we add them, which means x to the 5th power. So then we have x to the 13th power, and we're dividing by x to the 5th power, which means we subtract. So 13 minus 5 is 8. So the answer should be x to the 8th power. Whew, that was crazy, but we got it. All right, so then if we look at this other one, number 2, oh my goodness, there's so much going on here. We have to do the first part first. So x to the 4th power cubed, well, when we have an exponent to an exponent, we multiply. So 4 times 3 is 12. So that first one would be x to the 12th power. And then we have y to the 6th cubed, which would mean 6 times 3 is 18. So our first part would be x to the 12th, y to the 18th. Okay, and then we have to multiply them. So obviously if we have x to the 12th times x to the 5th, we would add those together. 12 plus 5 is 17. So our x is going to be x to the 17th power. Whew, that's a lot going on there. And then we have y to the 18th power times y squared, which means we're multiplying, which also means we have to add. Oh my goodness, so much going on here. And that means that we have y to the 20th power. So our answer, if we were going to square them on our homework, would be x to the 17th power, y to the 20th power. I know there's a lot going on there. All right, let's go to number 3. Oh my goodness. X to the 5th, y to the 6th, but it's to the 0 power. Oh my goodness, anything to the 0 power, we don't have to do it. We know that the answer is 1. So that one was pretty simple. We have a 1. Okay, so now we have x to the negative 1 and y to the negative 6 to the negative 2. Now, we know that we usually flip negative exponents, but in this situation, we're going to multiply. And this was a tricky one because we're going to multiply our exponents because it's an exponent to an exponent, which means when we have a negative times a negative, it becomes a positive. So if we go x to the negative 1 and it's negative 1 times negative 2, well, negative 1 times negative 2 is 2. So that would be x squared. And then we have y to the negative 6 times negative 2, negative 6 times negative 2, a negative times a negative equals a positive. So now we have y to the 12th power. Oh, this was a tricky one. You didn't have to put 1 over. So just remember, if you have a negative exponent and it's to a negative exponent, that is going to multiply together to make a positive. So hopefully you got that little trick there and your group figured that one out. But this was a trick question. So a negative exponent to a negative exponent is actually going to become positive. So make sure that you know that. Okay, we're going to do one last practice problem today, making it a little bit tough. Okay, so this is going to be a tough one. I want you to do this one on your own and see if you can come up with the answer. If you look at this, we have both multiplication and division. We have the top part that is all multiplication and the bottom part that is all multiplication, and then we're going to end up dividing those. So make sure that you understand that. I'm going to give you about 4 or 5 minutes to do this on your own. Please stay quiet if you finish it up and you think you have the answer so that everyone else can finish as well. So once you're done, you can just wait a few minutes and I will put the answer up for you. Okay, it's about time. Start finishing up. I'm going to put the answer in 3, 2, 1. Oh my goodness, the answer ends up being a squared b to the 8th power. I wonder how many of you got it correct. I can't be there to see how many of you got it right, but hopefully a lot of you did. So how do we do this problem? Well, first of all, we have to multiply the tops together. Of course, we would add them. So we have a to the 5th and a to the 6th power, which would become a to the 11th power. And then we have b to the 7th and b to the 8th, which would be b to the 15th. So we have a to the 11th, b to the 15th on top. And then we have the multiply the bottoms, a cubed and a to the 6th. We're going to add those together, be a to the 9th. And then we have b to the 5th and b squared, which would be b to the 7th. So now we have to divide. So if on the top we have a to the 11th and on the bottom we have a to the 9th, well, 11 minus 9 would be 2. So we end up with a squared. Then if we have b to the 15th and b to the 7th, well, 15 minus 7 is going to be 8. So we're left with b to the 8th power. Hopefully you had that. So remember, we have to do the top of this first, and then the bottom, and then divide. Remember that bar is a division sign. So make sure that you understand how to do that. If you have any questions on this, make sure that you ask tomorrow. If this question confused you, make sure you ask me tomorrow and to go back over it, because I would love to do that for you. Okay, I guess you're all done for today. And if for some reason you have a little bit of time left over in our class, please take out your homework and do that. If you have homework left to do or read silently, we should be pretty much finished with class. But please make sure that you're getting your homework done. This will be a good time to work on that. The homework is on the board. Or you can read or do something else, but please be quiet and be courteous to those around you. And I will see you tomorrow, and I hope I get a good report that you guys did an amazing job. Good job, everybody, and I'll see you tomorrow.